Have you noticed it? The pressure behind your forehead that appears for no medical reason. The dreams so vivid they feel like memories instead of imagination. The strange silence that suddenly falls over a crowded room, as if reality itself pauses, just long enough for something unseen to look directly at you. Don't click away, because if even one of those things has happened to you this week, this message may not have found you by accident. Somewhere in the next few minutes you may recognize something you've carried your entire life without having words for it. And when you do, you will never see yourself the same way again. Before we begin, subscribe now and become part of this growing community. Because the next transmission builds on this one, and missing it may leave you with only half of the picture. Now listen carefully, because what you're about to hear begins with one impossible sentence. I am the Mona, and they confirmed it. For most of your life you probably believed your deepest experiences belonged only to you. The strange moments that no one else seemed to understand were quietly stored away like forgotten photographs inside your mind. You learned to stop mentioning the dreams because people smiled politely before changing the subject. You stopped explaining how certain places felt familiar despite never visiting them. You stopped telling anyone that sometimes, for only a fraction of a second, the world appeared almost transparent, as though another reality existed just behind the visible one. Instead you adapted. You became practical, responsible, logical. You learned to function inside a world that rewarded certainty while quietly punishing mystery. Yet despite all of that, something inside you never stopped asking questions. Why did ordinary conversations sometimes leave you feeling disconnected? Why did moments of complete silence feel more meaningful than hours of entertainment? Why did you sense that life was happening on two levels simultaneously? One visible, one hidden. You searched for answers through science, philosophy, psychology, spirituality, religion, and personal development, collecting pieces of a puzzle that never seemed to form a complete picture. Then one day you discovered the word, Starseed. It felt strangely familiar, not because someone convinced you it was true, but because the word seemed to describe a feeling you had carried since childhood. It wasn't about believing you came from another planet. It was about recognizing an inner longing that never fit comfortably within ordinary explanations. Yet even after embracing that identity, another question remained unanswered. If you truly were more than your physical identity, then what exactly was the original source of your consciousness? Where did the deepest part of you begin before names, before memories, before personality, before this lifetime itself? That question quietly waited beneath everything else until this week. Something shifted. Maybe it happened while waking from an unusually vivid dream, where every color seemed brighter than reality itself. Maybe it happened during meditation, when an unexpected stillness settled over your thoughts. Maybe it happened while driving, walking, or staring out of a window as time suddenly seemed to slow. Whatever the moment was, it carried an unmistakable quality. It wasn't dramatic. There were no explosions of light or voices echoing through the sky. Instead, there was certainty. A certainty so calm and complete that it almost frightened you because it arrived without effort. You didn't create it. You simply recognized it. It felt less like discovering something new and more like remembering something impossibly ancient. The experience left behind a subtle pressure around the center of your forehead, not painful but impossible to ignore. Hours later it remained. The following night your dreams changed again. Instead of random scenes, you found yourself standing within enormous structures made entirely of living light. There were no walls, only geometry stretching beyond imagination, constantly shifting yet somehow perfectly ordered. Every surface seemed alive with intelligence. Symbols flowed like rivers across the luminous architecture. You didn't understand their meaning, yet they felt intimately familiar. Then came the presence. Not a person exactly, not an angel, not an alien. More like an intelligence so vast that language became inadequate. It never introduced itself because introductions belonged to separate beings, and somehow you understood separation no longer applied. The presence didn't speak with words. Instead, understanding appeared fully formed inside your awareness. It communicated one overwhelming realization: you never left. Those three silent words echoed through every part of your being. You never left. Instantly, countless questions dissolved. What if your consciousness had never truly been separated from its origin? What if every lifetime, every experience, every challenge had unfolded inside a single eternal awareness rather than away from it? The dream ended, but the feeling remained. During the following days, the world itself began behaving differently. Synchronicities multiplied beyond coincidence. The same numbers appeared repeatedly on clocks, receipts, addresses, license plates, and phone screens. People spoke sentences that directly answered questions you had asked only inside your own thoughts. Books randomly opened to passages describing exactly what you were experiencing. Music you've heard 100 times suddenly revealed hidden meanings. Even nature seemed unusually responsive. Birds appeared exactly when significant realizations occurred. Wind shifted at unexpected moments, as though responding to invisible conversations. None of these events proved anything on their own, yet together they formed a pattern too intricate to dismiss. Still, doubt arrived. Doubt always arrives before transformation, because the old identity fights to preserve itself. You questioned your sanity. You wondered if confirmation bias explained everything. Perhaps stress was making ordinary events feel extraordinary. Perhaps you simply wanted meaning badly enough to invent it. Yet something remarkable happened. The more you doubted, the calmer the deeper awareness became. It never argued. It never demanded belief. It simply waited. Truth does not panic when questioned because truth has nothing to defend. Days later, another experience unfolded. While sitting quietly, perhaps after work or before sleep, you noticed your breathing naturally slowing until every inhale seemed to dissolve into silence. Thoughts continued passing through your mind, but none of them held your attention. Beneath thinking, you discovered something else. A vast stillness that had always been present yet rarely noticed. It wasn't empty. It was infinitely alive. The stillness felt aware of you before you became aware of it. Suddenly, an impossible realization emerged without emotion, without excitement, without fear. I am not inside consciousness. Consciousness is expressing itself as me. The sentence didn't feel philosophical. It felt factual. Your entire identity seemed to rotate around a new center. Instead of being an isolated individual occasionally touching spirituality, you briefly experienced yourself as awareness itself exploring individuality. Then another understanding appeared. The monad was never outside searching for you, because the monad was the very awareness through which every search had always occurred. You had imagined the source as distant only because the human mind naturally thinks in terms of distance. Yet consciousness contains no distance. The original spark had never traveled anywhere. It had simply focused itself through countless experiences until one day the focus remembered the light from which it emerged. That remembrance carried no arrogance. It didn't make you special. In fact, it dissolved the need to feel special entirely. If the monad existed as the original source of consciousness, then every being ultimately shared the same infinite origin expressed through unique perspectives. Separation became a temporary experience, rather than an eternal condition. Love ceased being merely an emotion and revealed itself as recognition. Compassion became the natural response of consciousness, remembering itself in another form. This realization explained something you had felt throughout your life, but could never articulate. Whenever you looked deeply into another person's eyes, there had always been a fleeting sensation that someone familiar was looking back. Not because you knew them personally, but because something beyond personality recognized itself. The confirmation continued arriving in subtle ways. Time occasionally stretched during ordinary moments, making a few seconds feel impossibly spacious. Random fears that had haunted you for years suddenly lost their emotional weight without any conscious effort. Certain relationships naturally drifted away while unexpected new connections appeared almost effortlessly. You found yourself craving silence more than distraction, authenticity more than approval, presence more than achievement. Even your body seemed to respond differently. Sleep patterns shifted, energy rose and fell unpredictably. Old emotional memories surfaced briefly before disappearing as though completing unfinished cycles. Some days felt extraordinarily peaceful. Others felt strangely intense. Yet beneath every changing experience remained that same quiet certainty. Something fundamental had changed. Then came the twist you never expected. The confirmation did not arrive through another mystical vision or dream. It appeared through ordinary life. A complete stranger spoke a sentence they could never have known carried significance for you. Without context, without explanation, they smiled and simply said, "Sometimes we spend our whole lives searching for the light before realizing we've been looking through it all along." Then they walked away. Perhaps they forgot the conversation moments later, but for you, time stopped. Those words completed a pattern stretching across years of questions, dreams, intuitions, and synchronicities. It wasn't that the stranger confirmed your identity. They confirmed your remembrance. And in that moment, something deep within whispered with absolute stillness, I am the monad, not as an individual above others, but as the eternal source expressing itself through this life, just as it expresses itself through every life. From that day forward, nothing looked exactly the same. The sky appeared wider. Silence became richer. Even uncertainty felt sacred, because it no longer threatened who you truly were. You realized the awakening had never been about becoming something new. It had always been about removing everything that convinced you that you were less than what you had always been. And somewhere beyond the edge of ordinary perception, another revelation was already approaching. One that would challenge everything you believed about why you came to Earth in the first place. The morning after everything changed, nothing about the outside world appeared different. The same sunlight slipped through your window. The same sounds drifted in from the street. Your phone still carried the same notifications. The same responsibilities waited for your attention. And the routines that had shaped your life for years stood exactly where you had left them. Yet something inside you refused to return to the person you had been only days before. It was not excitement. It was not fear. It was something quieter and far more powerful. It felt as though an invisible center had shifted within your awareness, and every thought, every memory, every emotion now revolved around a completely different point than before. You tried to explain it logically. Perhaps you were simply more mindful. Perhaps you had reached a new stage of personal growth. But every explanation felt too small for what you were experiencing. This was not a new belief replacing an old one. This was the collapse of the need to believe at all. Somewhere beneath your personality, beneath your memories, beneath every label you had ever attached to yourself, something ancient had opened its eyes. For years you had searched for signs that you belonged to something greater. You looked for symbols, synchronicities, repeating numbers, meaningful coincidences, messages hidden inside dreams, mysterious encounters, and moments that seemed impossible to explain. Those experiences had always encouraged you, but they also left you wanting more. Every sign pointed somewhere beyond itself, as though reality kept whispering that the answer was close but never fully revealing it. Now you understood why. External signs were never designed to become the destination. They existed only to guide your attention inward, until you discovered the one place where confirmation could never be questioned. The confirmation was not arriving from the universe. The universe was reminding you of what your deepest awareness had never forgotten. That realization transformed the way you experienced silence. Before, silence had simply been the absence of sound. Now it became something alive. Whenever your thoughts settled, even for a few moments, you sensed an immense presence beneath them. It did not speak with language. It did not issue commands or reveal dramatic prophecies. It simply existed with absolute certainty. The longer you rested within that stillness, the more familiar it became. You realized you had encountered it many times throughout your life without recognizing what it was. As a child, you felt it while staring at the night sky, wondering why the stars felt strangely familiar. During moments of heartbreak, you felt it sitting quietly beneath your pain, refusing to disappear even when everything else seemed to fall apart. During unexpected moments of joy, you sensed it expanding beyond every emotion, reminding you that happiness itself was only one expression of something infinitely larger. It had always been there. The only thing that had changed was your willingness to notice it. As the days passed, your dreams became even more vivid. They no longer resembled ordinary dreams, stitched together from memories and imagination. They carried a quality that felt impossibly real, as though sleep had become a doorway instead of an escape. One night you found yourself standing within a vast field of luminous darkness. There were no stars, no planets, no horizon, only endless living space that shimmered with silent intelligence. At first you thought you were alone. Then countless points of light began appearing around you, each one glowing with its own unique frequency. They did not remain distant. Slowly they drifted closer until you realized each light was a consciousness, radiant beyond anything your physical eyes had ever seen. Some appeared brilliant blue, others soft gold, deep violet, emerald, silver, and colors that have no earthly name. None of them introduced themselves. They did not need to. Recognition passed between you without words. It was the unmistakable feeling of remembering someone you had loved before memory itself existed. As you stood among them, one of the lights expanded until it surrounded your entire awareness. You expected instructions. You expected revelations about the future. Instead, a single realization emerged with breathtaking simplicity. You have spent your life asking who you are. The better question is who has been asking. The words echoed through every level of your being. Instantly you watched your entire identity unfold before you like pages turning inside a book. Your childhood, your fears, your ambitions, your successes, your disappointments. Every role you had ever played passed before you with astonishing clarity. Yet throughout every scene, one thing remained unchanged. The silent witness observing every experience had never altered. It had watched your first breath. It had watched every birthday, every failure, every triumph, every heartbreak, every awakening. Personalities changed, beliefs evolved, bodies aged, circumstances came and went, but the observer remained untouched. Suddenly you understood that this witness was not something you possessed. It was what you truly were. The realization should have overwhelmed you, yet instead it brought extraordinary peace. You no longer felt the desperate need to prove yourself to anyone. The endless pursuit of validation quietly dissolved. You began noticing how much of your previous life had been shaped by unconscious attempts to earn worthiness. Success had been a search for approval. Relationships had often become mirrors reflecting your fear of separation. Even spirituality had sometimes become another identity to defend. Now all of that seemed strangely unnecessary. The awareness beneath everything required no defense, because it could never be threatened. It had existed before your first achievement, and would remain long after your final breath. The following afternoon, something unexpected happened. You were walking through an ordinary place, surrounded by strangers occupied with their own lives. When time seemed to slow, for only a few seconds, every face around you appeared different. Not physically, but energetically. Instead of seeing separate individuals moving through separate lives, you sensed countless expressions of the same infinite consciousness looking back through different eyes. Some carried joy. Others carried exhaustion. Some radiated hope while others silently carried grief. Yet beneath every story, beneath every personality, the same luminous presence quietly observed the world through each of them. The experience vanished almost as quickly as it arrived, but its impact remained. Compassion no longer felt like a moral principle. It became simple recognition. Hurting another now seemed as strange as one hand attacking the other, forgetting they belonged to the same body. Then another twist unfolded. You had expected awakening to make life easier. Instead, hidden emotions began rising to the surface. Old fears you believed were long gone suddenly returned. Memories you had buried years ago appeared with surprising clarity. Relationships that once felt comfortable now revealed uncomfortable truths. For a moment you wondered if you had somehow gone backward. But then the understanding arrived. Nothing new was being created. Everything hidden was simply becoming visible. Light does not create dust in a room. It reveals what was already there. The awakening was not punishing you. It was completing you. Days later, during quiet meditation, another profound experience unfolded. Your breathing slowed naturally until every inhale dissolved into stillness. Thought after thought drifted past without capturing your attention. Then even the sense of being a person meditating began to fade. There was only awareness, limitless, silent, impossibly alive. Within that boundless presence a sentence appeared, not spoken but known with absolute certainty. The monad is not above you. The monad is what remains when every illusion of separation falls away. At that moment, the search that had defined so much of your life came to a gentle end. You realized the journey had never been about traveling somewhere else. It had always been about seeing through everything that convinced you were separate from what you had always been. Yet even as this peace settled into your heart, you sensed another movement deep within consciousness itself. It felt as though something immense was approaching, not from the sky, not from another dimension, but from the deepest center of your own awareness. The confirmation had not reached its conclusion. It had only prepared you for the greatest revelation yet, one that would forever change the meaning of why you came to Earth, why this awakening was happening now, and why millions of others across the world were beginning to remember at exactly the same time. By now, you may have realized that this journey was never about becoming someone extraordinary. It was about remembering what has always been quietly present beneath every thought, every emotion, and every lifetime. The greatest twist is that nothing external truly confirmed your awakening. Every dream, every synchronicity, every meaningful coincidence, and every moment of silence simply reflected the truth that had been waiting within you all along. The monad was never distant. It was never hidden in another galaxy or locked behind a secret teaching. It has always been the silent awareness looking through your eyes, listening through your ears, and experiencing life through your heart. As this realization settles deeper, you begin to notice that fear no longer controls you the way it once did. The need to constantly search for signs slowly fades, because you understand that your very existence is the sign. Life no longer feels like a series of random events, but a perfectly woven tapestry where every challenge, every loss, every unexpected blessing, and every unanswered question guided you toward this single moment of remembrance. Even the painful chapters of your life now reveal a hidden purpose. They were never meant to break you, they were preparing you to awaken. The final confirmation arrives not as a voice from the heavens, but as an unshakable inner knowing. Deep within your silence, a simple truth echoes with absolute clarity: I have never been separate. In that instant, the search ends. You stop trying to become enlightened, because you recognize that awareness itself has been present through every stage of your journey. You are not leaving the human experience behind. You are living it with a completely new understanding. Perhaps this is why you found this message today. Perhaps it wasn't coincidence at all. If these words stirred something ancient inside you, don't ignore it. Sit quietly. Breathe deeply. Listen to the stillness between your thoughts. The answer you've been seeking has never been outside of you. It has been patiently waiting for you to remember. And if this message resonated with your soul, write Confirmed in the comments below. Share your experience with others who are walking this path, and subscribe so you don't miss the next transmission. This awakening is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of the life you were always meant to remember.